The following narratives are based on Genesis or Bereshit 47, 28, 50, 26, the Parasha, weekly portion of Vayechi. In the grand setting of the lands of Egypt, Jacob's time was drawing to a close. Now an old man, with hair as white as snow and a heart full of experiences, he gazed upon his children, with a sparkle in his eyes and a weight of wisdom in his soul. In Genesis 47 to 28, Jacob, now 147 years old, sat on his bed, feeling the weight of life and history that he carried. He was beside his son Joseph, who after years of separation and suffering, was now a man of power and respect in Egypt. But the old patriarch knew that the cycle of his life was nearing its end. The time for his departure was close, and what he longed for was one final opportunity to bless his children and pass on his spiritual inheritance. It was time to give his final blessing to each one of them. The wind whispered through the tent curtains as Jacob called his sons to gather around him. This moment was more than just a farewell. It was a passing of legacy, hope, and faith. He knew that his blessing would have a deep and lasting impact, echoing through the generations to come. Jacob blessing his children, Ephraim and Manasseh. The first blessing was reserved for the Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's sons. Jacob's decision to adopt these boys as his own was an act of love and a symbol of continuity, showing that God's promise that the blessing would be passed down to future generations would be fulfilled despite the adversities that had followed. Jacob looked into Joseph's eyes and, with the authority that only a patriarch could possess, said, "I adopt these two boys as my own, Manasseh and Ephraim. They are my sons now, just as Reuben and Simeon are my sons." And with a gesture of firmness and affection, Jacob crossed his hands, placing his right hand on Ephraim, the younger one, and his left hand on Manasseh, the elder. It was a symbolic act, one that broke tradition, but had the purpose of declaring Ephraim's spiritual primacy. Joseph was surprised, but Jacob explained that this was not a mistake. Ephraim, though younger, would have a great future. Jacob with his children around him, giving his final blessings. Joseph receiving Jacob's blessing. With a peaceful smile, Jacob then began blessing his sons, one by one, starting with the children of his beloved wife Rachel. Joseph, his most beloved son, received a powerful blessing, a blessing of prosperity, achievement, and leadership. Jacob remembered the suffering Joseph had endured, but also the greatness of his spirit. He said, "Joseph, the God who has kept me throughout my life be with you, and may he bless your descendants like the stars of heaven." But Jacob's eyes were not only focused on the future of Rachel's children, he also remembered his other sons, those of Leah, Zilpah, and Bilhah. Each of them received a blessing that, although carrying elements of correction, also held within it a promise. Judah, the fourth son, would receive an even more special blessing. "The scepter will not depart from you. Kings will come from your line." The other sons, while receiving their blessings, also faced warnings. But Jacob, with his wise and forgiving heart, left them words of hope. He knew that each one had a part in fulfilling God's divine plan. He who had faced so many struggles and tribulations in his own life could not fail to pass this wisdom on. The last request of Israel. The most emotional moment of the scene came when Jacob, now weak, asked to be buried in the Promised Land, in the cave of Machpelah, beside his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. He wanted to return to the place of his roots, where his faith had been strengthened. He knew that even in death, God's promise would continue to be fulfilled. The burial of Jacob, with a large procession in the desert of Canaan, surrounded by family members and Egyptian soldiers. Joseph, now powerful and with a broken heart, promised to fulfill his father's last wish. And it was with great sorrow but great honor that he led Jacob's burial ceremony. The great Egyptian court followed the procession to the land of Canaan, where in a solemn moment Jacob was laid to rest beside his parents. His life, though filled with struggles and challenges, was a testament to God's faithfulness. The story of Jacob, of his blessings and the vision he passed on to his sons, would become a beacon for future generations. Jacob's legacy was a legacy of faith, perseverance, and trust in God, and these blessings would echo generation after generation until the end of time. Personal and motivational applications. Trust in God during difficult times. Jacob lived a life full of challenges, from deceiving his brother to conflicts with his own children. Yet he never lost faith in God, and that trust was rewarded. When we find ourselves in times of tribulation, we can draw strength from Jacob's example of trusting in God's plans for his life. The power of a blessing. Jacob's words were not mere words, they had power. He blessed his children with a vision of the future and purpose. Just as Jacob blessed his children, our words can reflect love and motivation for others. We must be careful with what we say, for our words have the power to create and transform. We are transient, but our words can endure for generations. The blessings of Israel and his fathers protect and are the reason Israel exists to this day. Bless your home and your children. The importance of legacy. Jacob did not only live his life, but he passed on a message of faith, strength, and perseverance to the generations that followed. Each of us has the power to leave a legacy, whether through our children, our actions, or our faith. What do you want to leave to the world when your journey ends? Jacob's life reminds us that every choice we make impacts future generations. Perseverance in the face of obstacles. Jacob's story is one of struggle, but also of resilience. He faced betrayal, difficulties, and years of suffering, but always remained faithful to his faith. In our own lives, we may face similar adversities, but Jacob's example teaches us that perseverance and trust in God will lead us to victory. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring videos and stories that touch the heart.